Greetings from MWN.com. The topic is Okun's Law, in the subject Managerial Economics. Dr. M. Wilson, formerly Vice Principal and Head of Department of Commerce, Scott Christian College, Nagercoil, is delighted in presenting this session. Thank you. Please subscribe the channel MWN.com. Okun's Law. Okun's Law is an empirically observed relationship between unemployment and losses in a country's production. It predicts that a 1% increase in unemployment will usually be associated with a 2% drop in gross domestic product (GDP). The law emphasis about the actual GDP and potential projected GDP. In economics, Okun's Law is an empirically observed relationship between unemployment and losses in a country's production. This law is named after Arthur Melvin Okun, who first proposed the relationship in 1962. Arthur M. Okun was born on November 28, 1928 to 1980, in New Jersey, U.S. He was an American economist who served as chairman of the U.S. Council of Economic Advisors 1968 to 69. The gap version states that for every 1% increase in the unemployment rate, a country's GDP will be roughly an additional 2% lower than its potential GDP. A gap can refer to a difference or break between two things, such as a gap in a line, a gap in knowledge, or a gap in a price chart. The output gap is an economic measure of the difference between the actual GDP of an economy and its potential GDP. The difference version describes the relationship between quarterly changes in unemployment and quarterly changes in real GDP. The stability and usefulness of the law has been disputed. The chart clearly shows that decrease in unemployment decreases GDP. Other views about Okun's Law. 1. Martin Procounty estimated about a 3% decrease in output for every 1% increase in the unemployment rate. But he argued that the majority of this change in output is actually due to changes in factors other than unemployment, such as capacity utilization and hours worked. According to him, holding these other factors constant, then the association between unemployment and GDP to around 0.7% for every 1% change in the unemployment rate. The magnitude of the decrease seems to be declining over time in the United States. 2. The Lucas wedge and Okun's Law are both economic concepts that measure the difference between actual and potential economic activity. The Lucas wedge is a measure of the loss of potential GDP due to inefficient economic policy, while Okun's Law measures the difference between actual and potential GDP due to unemployment. 3. Andrew Abel and Ben Bernanke, estimates on the basis of data from more recent years give about a 2% decrease in output for every 1% increase in unemployment. His view is in support of Okun's Law. Mathematical statements. The gap version of Okun's Law was presented by Abel and Bernanke in 2005 as follows. Y equals C, U. Where Y is actual GDP. Y is potential GDP. U is actual unemployment rate. U is the natural rate of unemployment. C is the factor relating changes in unemployment to changes in output. The law emphasis about the actual GDP and potential projected GDP. In the United States since 1955 or so, the value of C has typically been around 2 or 3, as explained above, that is proportion of decrease in GDP with decrease in unemployment. The San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank determined through the use of empirical data from past recessions in the 1970s, 1990s, and 2000s that Okun's Law was a useful theory. The formula for GDP is GDP equals C plus I plus G plus XM. C is consumer spending, I is business investment, G is government spending, and XM is net exports. Gross National Product (GNP) is the total value of all goods and services produced by a country's residents in a given period of time. GNP includes income earned by residents from investments abroad, while GDP does not. GNP is based in the location of ownership, while GDP is based in the location of production.